G'day everyone, Michael here from MMA TV. Today we're going to be discussing UFC Vegas 26. We're going to be recapping the results, going through some of the fights, what I thought about the fights, and maybe some potential future matchups for the winners of those fights. But to start with, this card obviously seemed like it was a bit cursed with a whole lot of things going on. I'm surprised they did a good job to get a card together, obviously with Dillashaw and Sandhagen obviously meant to be headlining this card, which obviously didn't eventuate. And then you had Amanda Ribas getting pulled at the last second due to COVID reasons. So overall, I thought it was an entertaining card, and I think a lot of fans, they get disappointed from time to time when, it's not the big names. But that being said, if you see two people out on the street fighting, you're probably going to stop and watch. So they're going to be better than that. And I thought, I was entertained with a few of the fights on this card. That being said, I was in and out. It was Mother's Day, so I had a few other things to attend to. We went to the footy here in Melbourne. For those of you who are Australian and from Melbourne, I'm a Carlton supporter, so we're not going too well at the moment, but that's for another time. So we'll start off with the first fight on this card. Obviously, Amanda Ribas and Angela Hill was cancelled. So in terms of my prediction, I had Ribas, but unfortunately that fight did not go ahead. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to reschedule this fight for a future event. I would assume they would do so. I think it's an interesting matchup. I'd still really like to see that fight between the two of them. Moving on to probably the fight of the night. Gregor Gillespie versus Diego Ferreira, or Ferreira, however you say it. God, what an absolute clinic Gregor Gillespie put on. He really showed heart. That is, honestly, watching that made me feel tired just for him. And same with Diego Ferreira. It's not very often that you see someone literally giving up due to exhaustion. And coming out of that first round, it really looked like, on the feet, Ferreira, as we said in the predictions video, had the advantage probably standing, and Gillespie figured that out pretty quickly. He knew that he was going to have to wrestle his way out of this fight. In the first round, I think he might have had 5 takedown attempts, something like that. And it was awfully tiring. Going back to the corners, Gillespie really looked like he was gassed. I honestly thought he was going to come out and lose after that first round. I thought he was done. And I thought, here we go, my first pick is going to fall flat on its face. But he came out and just showed absolute grit with the cardio on his side. Now, I'm not sure whether the weight cut affected Ferreira. I guess there's two schools of thought. We had some people on the commentary team thinking that, having that 4.5 pound advantage would be a big advantage, and that, when you're going through a strenuous weight cut, that it's usually that last pound or so that really takes and saps the energy out of you, which Gillespie went the full weight cut and Ferreira didn't. But I've heard the other argument being made that, if you're not well prepared and you're coming in 4 or 5 pounds overweight, which is a lot, perhaps the cardio work wasn't there in the background. So it seems as though that 4.5 pound weight gain really wasn't much of an advantage for Ferreira. Really, Gillespie just came out. I know he won by TKO punches, but really it was just exhausting Diego Ferreira. So Gregor Gillespie takes the bag home with taking 30% of Ferreira's purse, number one. Number two, he gets fight of the night or performance of the night, and he gets his win and show. So I'm really happy for him. Congratulations to Gregor Gillespie. And I really hope that he's rewarded with a bigger names such as Dan Hooker. I think Dan Hooker would be a really good matchup. Just to give him a slightly harder fight, try and redeem himself from that Kevin Lee knockout. I think he's coming out of 2 losses at the moment, and he's probably not going to be looking at a higher ranked fight, Hooker that is. So I think that'd be a really cool matchup for Greg Gillespie. Let me know what you guys think. Now, for the next fight, probably there was not a very interesting fight or a good fight, but I don't like saying that because these guys go out there, work their asses off, training. So I still thank them for showing and putting on their best performance to the best of their ability. So we had Rodrigo de Lima versus Maurice Green. I had de Lima winning this fight. I thought that was going to be a pretty straightforward one. I know some people had picked Green, a few journalists and from a few other podcasts, but I just thought de Lima was going to win, and really he just it was kind of one of those ones where he sort of laid on top in that last round. He'd already done all the work and Green really wasn't doing a whole lot. There was a bit of commotion with the two not getting along for a little bit. There was a bit of beef there, but really nothing really interesting to talk about in this fight. I'm not sure if we're going to see Maurice Green again. He's lost his last few fights and he didn't really put on much of a show in this one. So hard to see the UFC bring him back for another fight. Rodrigo de Lima, not really sure who you're going to put him up against, to be honest. You could probably put him up against any heavyweight in the division. Obviously no one ranked too high, probably someone outside of the top 15. Take what you will out of that fight, but I didn't think it was particularly interesting. So still thank them, but hopefully next time, at least if Maurice Green gets another opportunity, hopefully he can have a better showing, and Rodrigo de Lima hopefully can be a little bit more entertaining from his end. Now, this is the only one that I predicted wrong, and that was Neil Magny versus Jeff Neal, and it was really confusing because you've got Neil and Neil, which was really interesting to listen to the commentary. So when I didn't really watch this fight to start with. I was driving, so I had Fight Pass on in the car. I wasn't watching, I was just listening to the commentary, and it sounded like Jeff Neal got off to a good start, landing a couple of strikes, and then it just seemed like from the second round onwards, Neil Magny had pushed him up to the fence, was throwing a lot more volume than Jeff Neal, not taking a whole lot of damage, but Jeff Neal wasn't active enough to get it done. So Neil Magny wins in unanimous decision, basically. And then I went back and watched the fight for myself to see exactly what was happening. I do think Neil Magny won that fight. I know some people had scored it for Jeff Neal. I don't really know how. He really wasn't active enough, I felt like, at the point. So I'm looking at a couple of the stats here. Neil Magny had 214 total strikes to Jeff Neal's 76 total strikes. And he landed 89, whereas Neal landed 37. Now, the 37 that Neal landed were hard, but Neil Magny just was an absolute cardio machine. And then, I guess in terms of the significant strikes, it was 55 to 35. So Neil Magny was a lot more accurate, almost half of his strikes being a significant strike, but it just wasn't enough to get him over the line. I think it was a bit disappointing from Jeff Neal. I had him, I thought he'd win this decisively, but the same thing, Neil Magny is a really high quality fighter. He does seem to, go against the odds quite often. So I think for Neil Magny, the next fight you might be looking at, there's a couple of names that pop into my head. So Khamzat Chimaev, I know Dana White's been saying that no one wants to fight him, but Neil Magny, I'm pretty sure, is off to fight him a number of times on Twitter. Maybe he finally gets that fight. Don't know if the UFC want to do that fight, because Neil Magny's a really good fighter, and I think they see some star potential in Khamzat Chimaev. So another potential opportunity is Vicente Luque. They haven't fought each other yet, and he's on a 3-fight win streak, and he's ranked a couple spots ahead of Magny, so they're fairly evenly matched. So I think that'd be an interesting fight to see. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Jeff Neal won the fight, or do you think the judges are right in giving it to Neil Magny? And who do you want to see? Do you want to see Neil Magny fight Chimaev, Vincente Luque? Always get my tongue twisted with that one. Or maybe there's someone else that I haven't thought of. So now for our upset of the night, I tipped Alex Morono. Sorry guys, just had to fix up the camera there. So next fight, I tipped Alex Morono. I had him as my upset pick of the night, even though there were a couple of upsets. And so, yeah, I just thought watching the fights against Pettis, Morono took that one on short notice. I think he fought fairly well, whereas Cowboy really got pieced up. And I guess it was the tale of, is Cowboy getting old, or has he just been, fighting against top quality opponents? And I think it's fair to say we can all see that he's starting to get a little bit old. I don't want to say washed, but, Alex Morono's not, he's not a bad fighter by any means. He's a good fighter, but he's not a top contending guy at this point in time. Now, coming out of that fight, again, that was one that I initially heard while I was driving, and then went back and watched, and it really just seemed like Alex Morono's job was to get him out of the fight by the first round and knock him out. We all know that Cowboy starts slow, and it just seems to be something that I don't know why he just can't fight in the first round. Alex Morono landed a perfect right hand against Cowboy, and that really was all she wrote for that fight. So I think, when it comes to Cowboy, is it time for him to retire? I don't know. I think he might have one fight left in him. Who he fights, I don't know. I think the UFC generally, like the big name fighters, they end up going out on their sword, trying to bring up another up-and-coming fighter. So it'll be hard to see. He's adamant he wants to go back to 155, but we never know. For Alex Morono, I think it'd be cool to see him fight against, he's really got almost any choice. He can try and face someone up in the rankings, or, fight someone back down if he likes. With a performance like that, really you kind of get a bit of leeway. So for Alex Morono, I'm not 100% sure who he's going to fight next, or who he should fight next. Maybe a rematch against Nico Price. Maybe Bilal Muhammad can get a tune-up fight against him, try and jump up in the rankings. Yes, having a look here, there are a few welterweights that he could go against, but hard to say. I think Bilal Muhammad might actually be fighting Damian Maia, so maybe don't listen to me on that one. Maybe Nico Price rematch might be a good one. So that was my upset of the night. Happy I got that one. And then for the final fight, we had Waterson Rodriguez, or Rodriguez, however you say it. Now, I had Rodriguez to win the fight. Went the distance. You could see that she came out, paced herself really well, probably won the first couple of rounds, and then maybe Waterson stole the third round there, but couldn't do a post-fight interview. It looked like she might have broken her jaw. I think, it was really good that the UFC did this at a catchweight bout rather than trying to make him get down to the strawweight fight. I don't think it really played any role in the fight, and I think for both fighters, for Waterson, it probably doesn't have, doesn't do a whole lot that she's lost. We know who she is, and she's a fairly established fighter. For Rodriguez, it's hard to say. There are a couple of matchups that have been thrown around that I've seen online and in podcasts. So Mackenzie Dern is one of them, and the other one that I've heard thrown around is Joanna Jacek, just because there's some similarities between the way that they fight. So it'd be interesting to see, but I was really happy with the way Rodriguez fought. I think she paced herself really well for her first 5-round fight. She was really doing damage. She can hit hard. And I think Waterson fared fairly well, considering she took this fight on short notice, and I guess, the difference in their striking prowess. She still managed to land a few good shots of her own. So overall, I quite enjoyed the card. I generally enjoy the cards regardless of who's fighting on them. I'm not sure about you guys, so let me know what you guys think. Obviously, we've got UFC 262 coming up this Sunday here in Australia and Saturday night for, in America. So I'm going to be doing some picks and predictions for that if you're interested to see. I'm currently 8-1-1 so far, or 8-1 if you just count. The reason I'm saying 8-1-1 is because the split draw between Kutelaba and Dustin Jacoby. Currently 8-1-1. Unfortunately, I didn't get the win on the weekend. My multi didn't come off thanks to Neil Magny. So we'll throw some picks together again. Hopefully we can win some money. But I'm really happy with how I'm tracking along. So follow along, guys. If there's anything else you want to add about the card, pop it down below. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see some more content from me. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.